Now, folks, if you'll just gather around a little closer now. Come right in a little closer. That's it. That's fine, folks.
So, No Smoke Sport have learnt from Law 360 that MATCHROOM are taking out a 7.7 million lawsuit on Ben Shalom's boxer and Sky Sports for allegedly forcing a breach of contract with Joshua Buatsi. MATCHROOM had secured a world title fight for Buatsi against Dimitri Bivol. Sky were convinced that Buatsi's tenure at MATCHROOM was finished, as MATCHROOM didn't compete with the 3.3 million they put on the table for Buatsi to defect to Boxer and Sky. MATCHROOM are saying they did match the deal that Sky made. Now, Buatsi's been with Sky for over a year. If MATCHROOM were to get 7.7 or even settle for less, let's say 3-4 million, Buatsi hasn't made Sky or Boxer that money where they can say, okay, we can piss off the lawsuit because we've turned Buatsi into a pay-per-view attraction. That hasn't happened. He had one fight in Birmingham and the crowd were walking out the venue because they were bored with Buatsi showing. The Dan Aziz fight got cancelled. It was scheduled to go ahead at the O2. It got cancelled, rescheduled for the OVO in a smaller venue. So he hasn't exactly been a ball of financial success for Boxer. MATCHROOM claimed they matched the material terms. Boxer disregarded that. And here's the thing. At the time when this was being contested between Hearn and Shalom, you'd hear Frank Smith, you hear Eddie Hearn saying, well, he's still in contract. And Ben Shalom says, oh, they know he's free to go. They can't stop him from going. And then eventually. But we'll have to see when both parties have their day in court how this one turns out. Buatsi could find himself sidelined if he's not careful. Could find his career on ice. And he's in his 30s now. And he hasn't had a world title shot. The winner of Buatsi versus Dan Aziz should go on to fight Dimitri Bivol. Dan Aziz, he'll be cleared if he wins, but if Joshua Buatsi wins and ends up in a legal battle,
it's not looking good.
Mazar Majid has managed to establish himself in a new sport, the sport of boxing, and now acts as an advisor to fighters, we were told, with direct links to Boxer, co-funded and run by Ben Shalom.
Look, yeah, they're clearly looking to Mazar Majid, and I think the point that we'd like to make is Mazar Majid has been involved in boxing long before we even existed. We deal with fighters. We deal with their representative.
So you are confirming that, yes, you do work with this guy and you'll continue to work with him?
If he represents a fighter, and a fighter instructs us that they are represented by him or his company, rather, then of course we will work with that company.
Would you like to see, Ben, better governance over who can represent fighters from people like the British Boxing Board of Control to suggest that certain people might be excluded from representing fighters, so people like yourself or Eddie or Frank that have probably all at one time dealt with this fella wouldn't have to deal with him in the future if he wasn't regulated properly by the industry?
Simon made sure he dry snitched on Eddie and Frank, because I'm sure they've had dealings with Majid as well. They're not dealing with this guy. We're talking about Ben Shalom. Let Ben face his heat without dragging other names in. And he basically just gave Ben a pass. Didn't challenge him on anything, on the morality of this man who was jailed 32 months for fixing a test match between England and Pakistan, and is of dubious character. When Simon has an agenda, he's all prim and proper and it's got to be done all by the book and morally and this, that. You've got to be consistent or you're going to get called on it. Now, I believe he's an agent for Chris Eubank. But Simon just gave him a pass. And, you know, I believe the Murdochs own Sky and TalkSport, so they're giving Ben a pass on everything. The lack of testing, dealing with dodgy agents, poaching fighters who were in breach of contract with the last promoter. And look, if you're wondering why Ben Shalom looks paranoid and is scared to do interviews, well, look, we'll see what's happening soon, yeah? And Simon will have to ask the hard questions because he's supposed to be the hard man who backs the wrongdoers into the corner. So when it comes out that Lindsay Smith is connected to Mazar Majid, the dodgy sports agent, that she received almost £80,000 from the boxing promoter that works exclusively with Sky Sports. And this is a reputable, when I say reputable, the Sunday Times has been around before I was born. They're not going to write this type of article if the evidence wasn't there. All I can say is this, is Barry Hearn or Eddie Hearn, in what must be at least a near 30-year reign they had at Sky, never had no controversies like this at all. Now, big up No Smoke Sport, and there's also No Smoke Boxing, I believe. Now, they're on Twitter, they're on YouTube, and obviously big up the Sunday Times, where No Smoke have distributed this information to the boxing world. The Times investigation, which was published last week, claimed that 2 payments were made to Star People Limited, a company that Shaliza Manji, the wife of Majid, controls. However, this week, a 3rd payment has been revealed, the aforementioned cash transaction to Lindsay Smith, who has worked for Star People since 2020. Boxer's finance manager, Ketu Thacker, has denied any recollection of this meeting or payment, but the Sunday Times reports that the multiple sources have informed them to the contrary. More than £300,000 has been paid to Star People, with instalments as recent as 6 months ago. Boxer's position is that payments were made in relation to the 2022 Amir Khan-Kell Brook pay-per-view fight. A representative of Boxer has reached out to No Smoke Boxing, No Smoke Sport and provided their response to this information being revealed. They say payments made from Boxer to boxers and their representatives are paid to their companies from our business. They are fully receipted and properly accounted for in our books with invoices and receipts. Majid is understood to represent Joshua Buatsi. Buatsi signed an exclusive deal with Boxer last March, and Chris Eubank obviously is another boxer that Majid represents. Chris's last 4 fights have been on the Sky platform. Now, it may be all above board, it may be all hot air, but we'll see. But they just seem to be in a lot of controversy. They're also saying that Majid was instrumental in Buatsi's multi-million-pound move to Boxer from MATCHROOM. No real surprise there. You know, it's not like Majid was hiding it. They were covering the fact that he secured the deal from MATCHROOM to Boxer for Buatsi at Star People, the company that Majid's wife controls. They were covering it there. Now, I don't know if
it's a robbery. It's a robbery.
Or a close fight that Michaela won by maybe 3 rounds or so. But she definitely won the fight. I had her up by 3, maybe 4. You know, technically, I could get at Michaela and say, you could have feinted more, probably took a step to your right, as opposed to always just walking straight in and squared up. And doubled up her long jab. I believe Natasha would have walked into a lot of the counter punches. But despite Natasha doing some very good countering, and in the early rounds she was moving well on her feet, Michaela won the type of fight that if you're fighting away from home, that you should fight. Yeah? Aggressive, assertive, make sure you have the last say in the exchanges, and she did that. She did that. And she wasn't rewarded. Jonas is a good fighter, but she's lost to Katie Taylor, Harper, and she was stopped by the crazy woman who was convicted for murdering her husband. Was it Vivian Oberheim? She's definitely benefited from the depleted gene pool in the various divisions in women's boxing. And if anyone's pissed about me saying that, who cares? And she got a gift. She got a gift against Michaela Mayo. I'm not saying Natasha should say she lost the fight, but she should want to run that back. If there's any professional pride, she would want to run that fight back and clear it up. One of the judges scored it 97-93 to Michaela Mayo, which is a clear margin of victory. Natasha squeaked by 96-95, 96-94. Since George Groves, Callum Smith, James DeGale, Carl Frosch. Before that you had Calzaghe, Eubank Sr., Ben. The UK haven't been lighting up the super middleweight division like it traditionally has. Let's keep it real. The likes of LeRon Richards, Lennox Clark, Mark Heffron have won the title. The likes of Willie Hutchinson have challenged. And it's been passed around like a football the last few years with, you know, the likes of Jack Cullen, who surrendered the title to ZACK CHELLI on points. lackluster performance from Jack, has to be said. And you have to wonder how long ZACK CHELLI can keep that title. You know, a good bet would be to back ZACK CHELLI to defend it 3 times and win it outright and win the Lonsdale belt. But will he be able to do that? Not convinced. He did what he had to do against Jack Cullen, who upset Mark Heffron and stopped him last time out, and I was shocked he did that. Jack Cullen, 6'3", super middleweight. He's very basic, and unless you're extremely predictable, he finds it hard to be effective. He was talking about how he's an improved inside fighter pre-fight. It didn't show up yesterday, if that's the case. And does he want to box or does he want to brawl? Doesn't have the natural ability or timing, but he's done well to get as far as he has, in all truth. And Zack made himself a difficult target by bringing that Roy Jones crouch, low left hand, ambush attack style. Used that up jab pretty well. Landed hooks over the top. The right hand particularly. Won a UD and a British title and a Commonwealth. So well done to ZACK CHELLI. Tim Bradley and his fellow commentator, they seemed relieved that the 12-rounder had finished, and it wasn't a very eventful fight in all truth. But let's keep it real, that's not unusual for boxer cards. You know, they're not exactly Uber Eats, are they? They're not delivering. Joe Joyce agrees with Lennox Lewis that the Anthony Joshua fight is not a good fight. It's not going to get him a title shot at the winner of Usyk and Fury. He says, yeah, but it's all about money, and that's the way it normally goes. And then further down in the article, they asked him who would win. Oh, it's a great fight. Hold on. How does it being a great fight back up what you said about the fight earlier? You said you agree with Lennox that AJ shouldn't be taking this fight. Then you say it's a great fight. They both have power. They both have this. Lennox contradicted himself too. AJ shouldn't be taking this fight. Why isn't he fighting this guy and that guy? Well, I saw Lennox Lewis breaking down Tyson Fury and Ngannou, and not once did he have any opposition to the fight. He was in a gym working out with somebody, and he broke the fight down, and he didn't once mention Tyson Fury should be doing all he can to fight Alexander Usyk. He shouldn't be taking his fight. He never once said anything like that.
Ngannou has a good chance because he's a shoot fighter. You know how you throw that perfect punch or that straight punch or that para punch? You know, for his whole career he's been doing that. You know, Tyson Fury's a person that's very hard to hit.
If my memory serves me correct, Lennox was at Ngannou and Tyson Fury. Not once did Lennox say this fight shouldn't be happening, he should be fighting Usyk. He talked it up and was never in opposition. But when AJ gets the fight, and look, Joe Joyce, you know, somebody convinced Joe that the first Zhang loss was a miscalculation against the run of play, even though Joe wasn't in the fight from the first bell till when he was stopped. His eye blown out, swole up, short turnaround, was it 2-3 months, gets back in the ring and gets chinned by the guy again. And now he's fighting on the undercard of the British middleweight champion Nathan Haney against Cash Ali. Guys like Joe Joyce should just box, because when he talks, it's just none too convincing at all. He does nothing at all to promote himself. You're left wondering, like, why don't you just box? He was better when he was with David Haye, and Haye used to do most of the talking. So yeah, the Cash Ali fight is flying way below the radar for what fights we've seen Joe Joyce fighting in recent years. But nowhere near below the radar as Luis Ortiz, who made a return to the ring on the 13th of this month against Francisco Cordero in Colombia. Cordero, 37 years of age, is a journeyman. He lost his last 4 before Ortiz stopped him in a round 3 fights ago, 2022. That shows you how inactive he is as well. He was fighting at 167 pounds against Thomas Lamana. I recognize the name on the box rec, and he's the same guy that Eris Landy Lara knocked out in a round a few years back. There's no footage of this fight at all, none at all, and I guess with the credentials of Cordero, Luis Ortiz wouldn't want this fight to be seen. If this is Luis Ortiz's swan song, or will we see him in this PBC Amazon deal? Who knows? Ortiz's last real fight was in late 2022 when he was dropped twice and lost the UD to Andy Ruiz. and he just seems to be an aging fighter, perhaps a casualty of the PBC not being able to secure dates for their fighters. He's 44 years of age. He weighed in a career highest 258 for the Cordero fight. Is there any way back for the boogeyman? AJ versus Wilder. Now, like I said before, the first point of reference in response to that is who's going to fund the fight. Is Al Heyman going to fund the fight? Because I haven't heard anything, Al. And this is from Your Excellency. He hopes Wilder can come back. There is a rumor, AJ versus Wilder on March the 3rd. But you see the result and the body condition of Wilder. Now, it would not be reasonable to have the fight now. The Wilder fans are going on like AJ controls who goes on the cards. AJ's not funding the fights. They don't want Wilder to fight AJ for the bag because Wilder stunk the place out against Joseph Parker. Just because Wilder is their king, they think everyone thinks the same as them. And, you know, yeah, we're just going to throw Deontay 30 million. When how much did he get last time for stinking the place out? The Saudis have the bag, but they don't just hand out bags for the sake of it. Name me one promoter who would overpay Deontay Wilder on his last performance. Name one, including Al Heyman. And to whoever has said that the fight was agreed regardless if AJ and Wilder lost, receipts. Let me see the receipts. And if you do have the receipts, the Saudis changed their mind regardless. Not Anthony Joshua's doing, the Saudis don't want the fight. Now, if he could redeem himself, yeah, we could see that fight. We could see it. There's going to have to come a time that Wilder fans realize you can't put AJ responsible for all of Deontay Wilder's downfalls, for all of his shortcomings. How are you supposed to improve when you don't take no responsibility for your fuck-ups? It is what it is. Do what you got to do, get back in the title picture or retire. Yeah? The only person who ducked a fight is they ducked the Zhang fight. Zhang's fighting Joseph Parker now. Zhang had his signature on the paper already to fight Wilder. Wilder's there in Alabama banging his brother's girlfriend or whatever, allegedly. So all he had to do was beat Joseph Parker and the fight was signed for. Joshua signed his part, he signed his part. He fumbled the bag, but still blames Joshua the reason the fight's not happening. And then, okay, he's ready to fight Anthony Joshua, but he's not ready to fight Joseph Parker, the guy who beat him. He's not ready to fight him or Zhilei Zhang. Who's the fraud? Believe it or not, this was only a one-day poll on Twitter, and this is the largest sample size I've got from a poll ever on Twitter. 795 votes, with 69.7 people say they have no interest in seeing Brook versus Eubank, and 30.3 say yes, they have an interest in that fight. What I would like to ask the 30% who's saying yes, how much you would pay pay-per-view for that? Because the only way it's going to happen is on pay-per-view. Like Eubank Sr. said, his son is a money man. He's fighting for the bag. Nah, everybody fights for the bag. You know what I mean? But Chris wants to be paid excessively. He wanted to be paid over the top for the Conor Benn fight. I believe he wanted more than $5 million to fight Conor Benn, and not a sanctioning body title or Ring Magazine belt is on the line. It's a domestic fight. What, because your dad was senior and Conor's dad was Nigel? You don't get that much for the fight. That fight's not worth 10 million apiece.
Chris Eubank wanted too much money. Don't know what more to tell you.
When you say a lot more money, obviously I'm not going to ask. Wanted too much money. So something that you couldn't get to, okay, because you didn't feel that he was worth that, or you didn't think...
Because to get to those levels, he would have to take a position in the show. And the pay-per-view would need to hit those levels. But he has to be a believer in that and take that. So there's a massive guarantee, but the number that he wanted was only achievable if it did so many buys. And for that, he would have to buy into the belief that it would. That's all.
Rob Tebbit, Boxing News, he graced the poll with his presence and said, no interest whatsoever. Brook was a terrific welterweight in his pomp, but he's pushing 38 years of age now, hasn't boxed in 2 years, and will be significantly outsized. Eubank was as good as he looked in ages in the Smith rematch. Would like to see him push on this year. You know, Chris is going to start all that I'm the A-side shit, and he's going to want the world. And you still got to give Kell Brook a purse as well. He's not going to accept the crumbs off the table, is he? I don't know what Eubank is playing at. He removed himself from the mandatory against Janibek for the WBO belt. The other day he said he instructed his promoters to make the Janibek fight. The trail on that's gone cold. Is he just filibustering, maybe hoping that Conor Benn will get cleared by the board to fight in the UK and then he'll take the fight because he believes the fight is worth more in Britain than it is abroad? Yeah, I believe he'd actually stay inactive and hold out for that. Carlos Adames tells us, I don't know what to think. I thought by being in the same company as other middleweights I would be able to face them. If the fighters from my own company, PBC, don't want to fight me, imagine fighters from other companies. I'm ready for anyone. Well, that's the price you pay, Carlos, for signing with the PBC. And his situation is messed up. It's going on 3 years since Jermall Charlo last defended his WBC middleweight title. Adames is in the interim position. Jermall came back to fight the other day in a catchweight fight, not defending his title. He couldn't even make the weight for that fight. And he gets rewarded by getting his name in the shake-up to fight Canelo on May the 4th. And anyone who's in the frame of mind that Canelo could just pick anyone he wants to fight and do what he wants, yeah, technically he can do that. But Jermall Charlo doesn't deserve a shot at any sanctioned super middleweight title. If that's what Canelo's going to do, that's what he's going to do. But there's better fights out there. I don't see what other fight at 168 there is apart from the David Benavidez fight. Now, you know, I've never been an advocate that David Benavidez is a great challenger, but at this point here, what else is there? Turki Ali Sheikh, he told DAZN that he issued a generous invitation to boxers like Devin Haney, the WBC 140-pound titleist, and Gervonta Davis to fight on a card sometime later this year, presumably at Riyadh. And obviously, you know, he wants some bang for his buck, so they get to have one interim fight, and then hopefully we'll get the big showdown between Devin and Tank. The Sheikh went on to say, I want him, Davis. Send message from you to Davis's advisor Al Heyman. Let's do this job together, brother. But Haney, I want to see in my country, and I send message from you now to him. I will do it in 2024. And Davis, of course, we want him in our country. Now, Devin, if you put the bag up, he'll show up and he'll fight. There's no doubt about that. So Tank replied to the offer made by saying, they made me mad. If they want me, they got to send me something to my front door, like 2 Ferraris or something. Like before I even think about going over there. Somebody replied and said, you are a scared fighter. Gervonta replied, nope, I'm the one with the power. In true PBC style. Now, I saw Your Excellency's interview with DAZN before Gervonta responded, and you can check the timeline. And before Gervonta responded, this is what I said on Twitter. Advice to Your Excellency, Turki Ali Sheikh. Leave them this side of the street, PBC boxers alone. They're nothing but aggro.